Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money. With your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 50 of Screw the Commute podcast. We got a great guest today. His name is Roberto Candelaria, and he's going to tell you how big companies can make your dreams come true. And they'll finance it for you. How do you like that? And guess what? You don't even have to pay them back in cash anyway. He'll tell you how to do that later. And I hope you didn't miss episode 49, which was one of my weekly Monday training sessions on repurposing, how to sell your knowledge in 19 different ways. That's episode 49. Now, our sponsor is How to Be a Kick-Butt Publicity Hound ebook. I've been on radio and TV all over the world, and this ebook tells you how you can do it too. I collaborated with Joan Stewart, the Publicity Hound, who included an even bigger perspective that will work for just about anyone who wants free publicity. So get a free excerpt and the table of contents by stopping by the show notes for this episode, which is episode 50, at screwthecommute.com/50. That's 50. Screwthecommute.com/50. That'll be where all the show notes are for this episode. Now, let's get to the main event. Roberto Candelaria is the founder of Sponsorship Bootcamp and the international best-selling author of Relationships Raise Money, a guide to corporate sponsorship, and Sponsorship for Influencers, Profitable Partnerships in 5 Simple Steps. He's also the creator of the Sponsorship Roadmap, Sponsorship Crash Course, and Sponsorship 901, and his strategies have transformed the way global influencers and organizations increase their bottom line by getting sponsored and leveraging their platforms for profitability. And his latest book, I was quoted as saying it is undoubtedly the best book that exists in the world on sponsorship. Roberto, are you ready to screw the commute?
Words I never thought I'd hear from Tom.
Well, you never know about me. So tell everybody what you're doing.
Well, what I love doing is helping people, whether they're authors, speakers, coaches, entrepreneurs, realize that they can get big companies to write them big checks, even if they're just getting started out in business.
Yeah, and that's great too, because some of the people here are established in business. Some of the people listening are wanting to start business, but maybe they feel like they don't have the capital. What would you tell them?
I would tell them that there's always a way when something inspires you and pulls you. In fact, I was that person that when I started my business, there was no capital. There was negative capital, and there was no Uber, there was no Lyft, there was no Airbnb. And you get very creative when you're dedicated to pursuing something to make it happen. And so I would say, decide what that thing is and go for it, because there's so many resources available on the internet and podcasts such as the Screw the Commute podcast that give you tools and resources that you can start taking a little bit of action to make the income until you can find that coach or that mentor that's right for you.
Well, Roberto, what year did you start your business, and did you have a job before that?
So I think that there's a difference between when I started the business and when I got serious about business.
Ah, okay.
So I would say that according to the state of Texas, I started my business in 2009.
All right.
and I will say that it was a very expensive hobby for the first 3 years while I had a job and was doing other things because I thought it was cool to have this idea of owning a business, but I really didn't know what it meant. And then in 2012, I had the opportunity to meet you at an event that we were both speaking at, and it was at a time where I was really going through some crappy medical stuff, and I remember you were talking about internet marketing and websites, and I was like, yeah, that's all a fad, and, and I'm sure you've heard that over the years.
Yes, I have.
And I remember that I even at that point, 2012, I didn't have the financial resources to invest into your mentor program at the time, and so we were at this hotel for this event was at, and you mentioned this WordPress e-course that you had, and I even at that point I didn't have the extra $100 for that, and you believed in me and you worked with me, and I took that course and I learned how to build websites, and so I would say that was the start, 2012, about me starting to get serious about, hey, like this really can be a business. And 2013 is when I really got really focused and decided to join your mentor program and actually realized that the internet wasn't a fad and that it wasn't going anyplace and that you could make a great living online serving people with the information that they need that they might not be able to access elsewhere.
Yeah, and so back up to the time when you were going to work. What kind of places did you work? What was it like?
Oh God. I tried to block that
I'm
out of my
sorry to
head.
bring back those
And
memories, but that's what this show is about. I Sorry.
I was gonna say that was PTSD.
Yeah.
The last job that I had was working for Dell Financial Services and was working in a call center doing customer support while I was working with nonprofits doing sponsorship on the side because it was fun and I didn't realize that I could actually make a living teaching sponsorship and doing sponsorship. So I was working customer service and I was the PTSD part was I worked in the division that if people could make it through like, 4 or 5 levels of whatever other country we were outsourcing to at the time,
Yeah.
they got to me and I got somebody on the other end of the line saying, "This is John Wayne." And I'm like, "Dude, you're not John Wayne." Uh, introducing me to somebody who like as soon as I got on the phone, they wanted to cuss me out. And I was
Of
like,
course,
"Look,
yeah.
all I want to do is help you. And I understand you've been through 4 people, but please quit cussing me out." And I was like, man, it's the only time in my life I've been paid to get cussed out. It
Well, yeah,
was,
I mean, that's some people try to get that kind of work,
yeah, not me. I don't miss it.
Well, all work is good, but that is not not the best thing I would shoot for. All right, so what was the turning point when you decided I've had enough of this, I'm gonna get out of this?
Well, the turning point was that I've always had a habit of saying what I think, and they kind of decided it was time for me to leave.
Okay. Oh, I see.
It was kind of decided for me to
Yeah, well,
leave.
it's good, the mutual agreement there between 2 parties.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, but most people say that that's the best thing that ever happened to them. I've been through hundreds and hundreds of students, and many of them were in the same situation, and as they look back, they say that was the best thing that ever happened.
Looking back, I can say it was one of the best things that ever happened in that it pushed me forward in entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
But at the time, it was not one of the
I
best.
get that, yeah.
I got to learn, and I don't know if anybody listening to this can relate. I got to learn the pink envelope dance, and so I learned very quickly that when you pay your bills on time, the envelopes are white, and when you get a little bit behind, it gets yellow. When you get a little farther behind, when it gets pink, and then when the red envelope comes, it's like, oh crap, it's about to get cut off here,
Mhm.
and that was the okay. Something's got to happen, and something's got to get real really quick. And that was the turning point when the red envelope started showing up.
I get it. Well, that's, again, as you look back, see, a lot of people would just keep getting cussed out and shut their mouth and keep getting cussed out and shut their mouth and be there for the next 20 years getting cussed out and just get knocked down and where they just kind of hate themselves and hate life. So that's why
I,
getting fired is really better in the long run.
yeah, and I just happened to respond back to somebody with some of the language they used at me, and that's why they decided it wasn't a good fit for me to be there.
Oh, that's cool. So, what would you say to someone that's in that situation right now that is sitting there in that cubicle listening to this on the way home or when they're working out and they're like, "Damn, I do not want to be there anymore. I will do anything to get out of it." What would the steps be that you would suggest?
I would say that the first step is to really realize that that job right now is probably your biggest asset. And I wish I would have known about business back then. And what I mean by that is that it takes time to build a business. And people like Tom with his internet marketing skills and his mentorship program, a lot of what I do today is because of what I learned from Tom. And I wish I would have met Tom while I was working because then that job could have been that silent investor in me while I
Hmm.
was building everything else. And so, number one, I would say, let that job be that silent investor. Number two, I would say, set a deadline for yourself. Otherwise, you are going to be there 20, 30, 40 years later and say, hey, I'm not going to tell anybody to quit their job right now without having another source of income. But if you know that you want to be out of there in 12 months or 18 months, set that goal and then figure out what that business is to start making that income. And then I say, once you make about, to me, the number now that I look at consistently is once you're making about half of your salary doing it part time in whatever this new business is, give it a go full time. But don't just quit without a plan.
Yeah, and that's what I tell people is I say I want to make it too expensive for you to go to work anymore. I want you to get to that point where it costs you too much to go to work because you could be spending that time on your own business where there's no ceiling, there's no limit to what you can make. So tell them about a little bit. Give them maybe several tips on using sponsorship to help finance their business. How does that all work? What's it all about?
Yeah, so sponsorships, it's amazing, and while people try to make it really complicated, what I like to say it is you have this brand, and pick a brand. It might even be the brand that you currently work for right now. They are always looking for more customers. They're looking for more business, and so to me, sponsorship is when a brand gives you a product, a service, or even times a check, and sometimes some very big checks in exchange for access to the audience that you've built, whether that be a podcast, whether that be at your platform as an author or a speaker, as a coach, or even a chiropractor or dentist or any type of Main Street business. There are brands that want access to the databases and to the customers that you build. And so the first thing I would say is number one, actually start to build a list some way. And whether that's something like using Kickstart Cart to be able to build your email list or building a text message marketing list, or even something as simple as mini chat to be able to start building your messenger list. Start building a list because it's going to help you with sponsorship in terms of being able to say, hey, I've got an audience that you can reach and that wants access to your products. And that also, from the other side, as you build that list, as you build that community, it allows you the opportunity to have people that when you create a new product or service or come up with a flash sale, you have people that are able to buy it. The second thing that I would say is that as you continue to build a business and look at sponsorship, is to get very clear about who it is that you serve and who it is that you want to work with and who's that your target customer. And the reason that I say get very clear is this helps in three different areas. And this is something that I really learned actually from Tom when I was at the retreat center for a mentee weekend, and then I've just kind of added on to this. What I've realized is that the clearer we are on who we serve, it helps us three main ways. Number one is if you're whether no matter where you're at in your business, if you're just like, man, I don't have enough customers, I'm not selling your stuff. It could be because you don't know who you're selling to when you're trying to sell to everybody. So number one, being clear on who you serve. That also helps you with two, your Facebook ads. And I'm sure Tom's going to have somebody here on the Screw the Commute podcast talking about marketing and Facebook ads
Hmm.
because I mean, if you don't get really targeted on those ads, I mean, you might as well walk into the casino and like just throw $100 on Red 36 and pray it hits it
Right.
because that's what we do when we hit boost post. But more importantly, from a sponsorship perspective, is if we know who we serve and what brands those are and like what that person is like. So I want to know their age. I want to know if they're male or they're female. I want to know if they haven't decided if they're male or female. I want to know if they've got a dog, if they've got two dogs. Then what that really does is that allows us to say, okay, these are the brands that want access to that person that we serve. And then I'd say that the third important thing is to actually know what it is that you want to have sponsored. And I believe that just about anything can be sponsored as long as it's two things. Number one, that it's legal. And my guess is if you're here at the Screw the Commute podcast and you're part of Tom's community, then whatever it is you're doing, it's probably legal. And number two is that somebody has to be able to see value in it. And I firmly believe that as long as you're doing those two things, number one, whatever you're doing is legal. And number two, somebody can see value in it, that you can get sponsored. And then the last thing is to know what brands you'd like to be sponsored by and keep in mind knowing your audience. And so Tom might want to get sponsored by
PayPal.
PayPal. And you know what? And that's a great fit because Tom's audience needs PayPal. But let's say that Tom wanted to get sponsored by, oh, I don't know, Hawaiian Tropic or
Danskins. I don't think it's the greatest fit.
yeah, something that didn't apply to who his customers and the things that they needed for their business. And these brands would be like, why the heck did you call me right now? And so it'd be, a great to know, right? What brands want access to the people that you serve. And so for like Tom, he said it might be a PayPal, it might be, Kickstart Cart, it might be someone like a Stripe or another merchant processing, it might be someone like WordPress. And so when you know who it is that you serve, then that's how you figure out these brands, who wants access to these people.
That's funny you mentioned Hawaiian Tropic. Did you actually know that I was the only independent pageant producer for Hawaiian Tropic in the world?
I did. You
Yeah,
told
so
me
I
that
thought, okay.
one of our first things.
Yeah.
We ate pizza and we talked about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, but and I know you've got a lot of stories, and I'm glad to hear a couple of them, but I just have a quick story that just sticks in my mind. Of course, I got a sponsorship. I was a spokesperson for CBS, one of the biggest contracts I ever got in one shot, easiest job I ever did. But that's not what I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about this woman that designed one of my book covers years ago. And she was just a struggling graphic artist, and just out of nowhere, with no list. Of course, build your list, build your platform, absolutely. But she had nothing, zero, except she knew a lot of graphic artists. So she just decided to throw a graphics contest, a commercial graphic arts contest. She ended up getting like $60,000 from Apple and a bunch of other sponsors, and she was a nobody, had nothing going for her other than she just decided to make this happen and put this package together, and ended up, I don't know, with over $100,000 or something in sponsorship for her contest. So, and people had to pay an entry fee to get into the contest, and then there was some big prize, and I don't know what all was involved, but out of nothing, she created this using the same concept that you teach people how to do.
I was over here chuckling, and I was chuckling because people, I guess, kind of in a way like I did when I first met you with internet marketing. People were like, "This can't be possible. How could you actually get sponsored?" The same way that I was like, "How could you possibly make money online while sitting on your butt and like people paying you?" Like,
You just
and
go do
so
it
I get it now.
because most people can't believe it, so they won't go do it. And I understand that with all the ripoffs. That's why I started Scam Brigade, and I'm consumer advocate too because of all the ripoffs. But you just decide, and then you go do it. All right, as long as you're not putting a lot of money out and a lot of risk, what do you have to lose?
And then part of that is like you said, what do you have to lose? What you have to lose is, you know what, you might fail. And what I say about that is, I wish that I would have failed a lot faster, a lot sooner, instead
Mhm.
of being so cautious, because when you fail, that means you're actually doing something.
And you're learning from whatever that was, as long as you don't put too much out where you get your head chopped off. Yeah, you can absorb a lot of failures. In fact, all of the successful people that I know, including myself, have failed way more than we succeeded. But we would have never got to the succeeding things if we hadn't gone through all the failures. Right. So people that instantly successful, very seldom is that ever true.
Oh yeah, it's an overnight success,
Yeah.
10 years in the making,
Right.
but they didn't see the first 9 years.
So have you ever gotten screwed in business?
Oh man, just once.
What'd you do about it? How'd you handle it?
I honestly didn't know what to do at first. So when I first put on my first online course, which you mentioned during the introduction, I created this course called the Sponsorship Roadmap, and I was super excited about putting out this course out there, and I like poured my heart and like so much energy into this and was building it. And I mean, we put it out there. A few people bought it, and like I was excited that a few people bought it. But one of the things that concerned me is that there was somebody who taught the same topic as I do, actually went and bought my course under their name with their credit card and their email. And I was kind of like, I don't know, like part of me at first was like, this is really cool. They want to learn from me. And then what I learned is that they wanted to learn how to copy my course to sell it as their
Right.
own. Through talking to a couple people, I learned about attorneys and I learned about copyrights and trademarks and really the importance about protecting your intellectual property. And we were fortunate that the small business attorney that I worked with was able to help us resolve everything in a way that wasn't extremely expensive for me because just had this like system in my head that was like, man, attorneys are expensive. But I learned the importance from that of really protecting your intellectual property and also being able to have systems in place that you can look and see like, man, this person really tried to take my stuff and they did. And so, I mean, we locked out their access. They didn't get a refund. I mean, they got a legal bill and I guess I got another check from them, which was cool. It was a little bit more than the course. But that was one example. And then another example was just hiring a web designer. And this is, what actually led me to you many years ago when we met at that event was the WordPress e-courses. I'd hired a web designer for about $5,000.
Oh
And,
my God. I'm
this
getting sick.
was 2011. People were like, is it going to be WordPress? Is it going to be Joomla?
Uh,
Maybe Drupal? I mean, now we know the ending of that story and who won. But, back then, sites that we can get now for like $300-400 were like 5 to 10 grand back then.
mhm.
And I actually took out a $5,000 loan from my mom to be able to build that site. This person ran off and man, talk about getting screwed.
Yeah, I actually bought the domain name Kill Your Web Designer. I own that
I
domain
felt like it. Believe you me, I felt like it because then I not only didn't have a website, I didn't have a place that I could sell this stuff online that I'd created. I was also out $5,000 that I promised my mom that I was going to be able to pay her back. And so thankfully I've been able to pay that back multiple times over the years from what I've learned and implemented. But man,
Yeah,
that
because
was an
she
expensive.
threatened to break your knees if you didn't, I think.
I think so.
Texas girl, you know.
I think so.
Hey, I just thought of another story, and I mean, I know when you're doing your events, you get probably all the latest figures, but do you have a feel for the amount of money? I know you at your seminars, I hear you talk about the amount of money available for sponsorship just in the United States and how
Yeah.
it's
So
been increasing
gosh,
and why.
it's yeah. So it's been crazily increasing, and in fact, the number one reason why is that to this day, traditional media is just dying faster and faster and faster. And I mean, I was just in the Atlanta airport a few weeks ago, and I saw a going down one of the escalators. They've got the advertisements in the airports for you to be able to see, and they were advertising a conference that had been 3 months prior. And it just, re-stuck in my head about how traditional media is dying because if they were selling that space, would that billboard inside the airport still be there for a conference that was 3 months prior?
Right.
And so sponsorship's really a way for brands to be able to connect with their ideal audience and get in front of them and really figure out, do they like this product or service, for them to be able to do market research, for them to be able to test focus groups, for them to be able to build brand loyalty, are just some of the reasons that these brands sponsor. And in North America, there's over $26 billion, that's with a B, $26 billion worth of funding. And if you're willing to say, hey, you know what? I really want to screw this commute and like, let's screw it all the way. And well, let's get out of this country. Let's get out of North America for a bit. If you're willing to get out of North America, that number jumps to about $63 billion
Wow.
available
Wow.
annually. So almost 3 times as much money if you're just willing to say sayonara and head over to Italy or New Zealand or China or Dubai or anywhere but North America, almost 3 times as much funding available.
Wow. Hit home with me when I had a student a few years back, and he was working on a sponsorship deal for some children's things, really nice thing for children. And he had a friend that was an executive at a big insurance company, kind of telling him who to talk to and so forth. And so he worked up a proposal. He needed about $100,000. So he let his buddy, who was an executive at this company, see the proposal before he submitted it. And you know what his buddy said? He said, "I can't believe it. You can't present this to them." He says, "It's only 100,000. If they won't even think you're serious unless it's 250,000." There's more money out there than we can imagine as small business people on these big corporations, and they'll give it to you if you present yourself properly.
Absolutely. And to that point, one of the biggest mistakes that people make in sponsorship is not charging enough. And so the example that I like to give on this is like, let's say that you have your dream car, whatever that dream car may be. You've probably already know, like, I want this car, I want this model, I want this year, I want this color. These are all the specs that I want on it. This is the radio I want. This is the GPS. I want heating and cooling seats. And you know every single detail about that, including how much it cost. And that if you were to go to two different car lots that were right next to each other, and one of them was that luxury car lot, and you just got the world-class service, you walk in, they shake your hand, there's no haggling, and they tell you the sticker price, which you already know, you're like, man, I really like this. But then you go next door and it's, one of these gravel lots, and the person's like in torn up jeans and shirts wearing an A-frame t-shirt, and they've got flies all over them, and they look like they haven't showered in 5 weeks. And they walk up and, they swear to you it's the exact same car, and that it's only, a tenth of what the car costs next door. Most people would stop and say, what the hell's wrong with that one? There's got to be something off. And we do the same thing when we price ourselves in sponsorship to businesses, because these businesses, they see hundreds, if not thousands of proposals every single week. And so they already know, if you're going into a major corporation, even for something that you might consider small, if you're going in with less than $15,000 to $20,000 for something small, I'm not even talking like a tour, just like a one-time event, they're going to be thinking, man, what's wrong with these people? Because everybody else is charging this. And so, we want to make sure that we're pricing accordingly, because like Tom said in that example, one of the number one reasons people don't get sponsored outside of not asking is that they don't ask for enough.
Yeah, and the same thing happened to me when I started speaking. Good speakers were going for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for a speech, and I was coming out of the entertainment field where $100 was a good night, and so I said, I'll just charge $500, and I'll beat out all these other guys. I couldn't get one speech at $500 because people just felt something's wrong with the guy. He must be a womanizer, must be a drunk, doesn't show up, offends people. Who knows what they were thinking, but I couldn't get one job at $500. It's the same exact concept. So anything funny, bizarre, crazy happen in the sponsorship world? In your sponsorship world?
I mean, we've seen, we've seen porta potties getting sponsored.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen it all. Like I said, it's got to be legal, and somebody has to be able to see value in it. And you know what? A porta potty's legal. And I tell you, when you're out at a music festival, that porta potty is very valuable.
So they probably sell on the inside of the door. There's space there that could be sponsored, right?
They sell that. They some festivals have actually sold the rights to what toilet paper goes inside the porta potty.
Yeah, and I heard a guy one time, they had these things you pull out of a dispenser that go around the seat so you don't actually touch the seat.
Uh-huh.
And he's thinking, man, sponsorship area, advertising space. So yeah, there's all kinds. I imagine there's just enormous numbers of things that have gotten sponsored over.
Yeah. I mean, and if we stick with the toilet example, ACL, so Austin City Limits Music Festival, they actually run a campaign during the weekend for this thing called the Golden Throne. And it's a big porta potty. They soup it up with air conditioning and a bar. And
what, do you get inside it or what? Is that giant? You mean it's a giant thing you go into?
It's a giant porta potty, and so if y'all
it's
are
like
bored,
a building size. You mean?
It's fairly large, maybe about the size of 3 or 4 porta potties. But what they do is it's a trailer, and it's got AC. They spray paint the whole thing gold. There's a bar next to it, and it's a sweepstakes that's done with their sponsors. And only like 100 people or 150 people every weekend during ACL Festival get access to the Golden Throne to keep its exclusivity, while everybody else gets to use the porta potty that thousands of people are using. And you do not want to be the person using that at the end of the night unless it's the Golden Throne.
There you go. Oh yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of stuff. I'm thinking whenever Hello Kitty first started out, it's a $1 billion company. Probably that somebody says, I want to put this goofy looking kitty on something. Oh, okay. How much money you need? Oh, $22 billion. I don't know. But they started out. I didn't even know what it was until Starley told me about it. She says, "Oh yeah, I love Hello Kitty." I'm like, "What the heck is that? And it's a giant, giant, giant brand. So how could people work with you? What do you got to offer them that they could, if they need some kind of training? I know you got books, but you got courses, live events. What all's on the table for people that say, "Hey, I'd like to learn more about this."
Well, for people that want to learn more and they're ready to get big companies to write them big checks, we've got online courses such as the Sponsorship Roadmap or Sponsorship 901. And we continue to do online virtual events on a monthly basis. And the best way to be able to figure out all of those is on Facebook by heading over to my Facebook group. We'll make sure that Tom
Yeah,
has a
we'll
link
have
for that.
everything in the show notes. Yeah.
Or coming out to one of our live events that we host throughout the year. I'd love to be able to meet you and shake your hand so you can practice that handshake for when you get that first sponsorship check. Really, it all starts online. And so I say it starts online because whether that's through one of our free e-courses or going through one of our online courses, such as the Sponsorship Roadmap or Sponsorship 901, I don't want you to have to wait till we do our next live event. We want you to be able to take action now because we want you to be able to screw the commute.
There you go. All right. So, quick word from our sponsor. Hey, free publicity can skyrocket your business. I started my entire career in what I call media marketing. I got clients to call me by being interviewed on radio and TV and in print. So, how I did it and how you can do it too is in this ebook, How to Be a Kick Butt Publicity Hound. Get a free excerpt and the entire table of contents at screwthecommute.com/50. That's 50 because that's what this episode is. And this book will really help you actually in your sponsorship world too, because if you show radio and TV appearances and print, you're in print all over the place. That's a very impressive to the sponsors, right, Roberto?
Absolutely is.
So get yourself a copy of How to Be a Kick Butt Publicity Hound. It's a good book, and you can get a free excerpt and the table of contents in the show notes. Now, Roberto, tell them what a typical I laugh because I kind of know there's no answer to this, but tell them what a typical day is for you in your Screw the Commute life and how you stay motivated.
Well, typical day is realizing that these days there's no such thing as typical. I would say
Right.
that the typical is that the consistent is the inconsistent. And what I mean by that is having this lifestyle of the screw the commute has allowed me to be able to do webinars, to be able to have online courses, make money online, be able to some days travel not only the country, but now around the world, speaking on sponsorship, whether I've been in London or New Zealand and later this year in Jamaica and France as well. It allows the freedom to be able to do that. But the screw the commute lifestyle, more importantly, allows that when the life circumstances pop up, that you can say, you know what, mom or dad's in the hospital. I need to go over there and be able to sit there and be with them and care for them and know that the entire time, because you decided to screw the commute, that you're still being paid online while you're at the hospital. And so I think that it's an awesome thing. That's why I say that the day to day is the inconsistency is the consistent, and it's an amazing journey every single day. And
Never
I
boring, I'll bet.
Oh man, never. I tell you, and you know, another amazing opportunity that was fun is this past February, I had the opportunity to speak in London, and got a phone call while we were over there and said, "Hey, there's this event going on in California. Can you change your flights and can you be in California in 48 hours?" And I tell you, to just be able to say, "Yeah, let's change the flights and fly, from London to California to be able to speak and serve another group of people on how they could get sponsors for their books, products, and events is an amazing thing. And I can't imagine sitting in traffic anymore. I tell you, sitting in the Delta Lounge is a lot more fun than sitting at the red light.
That's for sure. And I got the same story when my mother kind of started going south, and I had to, I'm the baby of the family, had to go move her out of our family home that she'd been there 50 years and very traumatic for an older person. And I took off 3 months and came back and had way more money than when I left. And most of my people, friends of mine said, well, we'd have been bankrupt in 2 months had we taken off 3 months of work. And so it really allows when life gets in the way, I call it like an insurance policy. You have, And also, everybody's into real estate. Well, we're into virtual real estate. We actually call it VRE, virtual real estate, where you have all these online properties working for you. And I'm not telling you don't have a brick and mortar business, but I'm just saying that the online stuff can be working 24/7 for you, and you don't have to open the door every day at 9 a.m. and so forth. So it's really a great insurance policy for you and your family. But sometimes it's a lonely world out there. How do you keep Walt motivated? Tell him about Walt.
So,
That's his partner, Walt.
Walt is the crazy, fun, sometimes psychopathic German Shepherd who I tell you is God. He's just a bundle of joy.
Mhm.
And we got him from a rescue and have done all types of fun training with him, air scenting and groundwork, and played a little bit with water rescue. And so keeping him busy is fun and exciting. And the other way that, like Tom said, the screw the commute thing, people will be like, man, when you're by yourself at your home, it's like, who am I talking to? Da, 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 da. For me, I think it's important to, whether it be local or find a local group of peers that are decided to screw the commute as well, but also go to an event once a quarter. That's a state or a regional event. Go something once a quarter. Find something local once a week that you can just kind of get out to. Go to a coffee shop and find other people that are also saying, damn, I'm going to screw the commute, and get out there with them also, because what you might find is that these people, while they may not be your customers, they could become your best marketing partners, which is oftentimes way more important than them being a customer.
Yeah, and there's meetup groups. You could look for meetup groups for entrepreneurs and so forth. And one tip that I have is buy yourself a water cooler, and then in the middle of the day, go over and stand by it and gossip to yourself. If you feel like you missed the corporate world. This has been great, awesome. So this has been episode 50. And do you have any parting thoughts for people thinking, hey, I want to take my business to the next level? This could be the way, or I want to start a business.
Yeah, whether it's taking your business to the next level, or it's even just saying, hey, I'm just going to screw the commute and I'm actually going to get started. I think that the number one thing is to do just that, get started. Because like I said, according to the state of Texas, I had a business for a few years before I decided it was just a very expensive hobby and that it was time to actually make money with it. And so that as you move forward with this, whether you've got your virtual real estate, your products, your courses, or if it's something brick and mortar, decide that you want to move forward with it. And more importantly, decide that you're worth it and the people around you are worth it, because there's a lot of people out there. And one of the things that really also motivated me over the years was hearing somebody tell me, aren't you tired of seeing people that aren't as smart as you make 10 times more money than you? And I finally said, you know what? I am. And so get started, get out there, because the fact is the consumer is going to spend the money somewhere. It might as well be with you, so you can screw the commute.
There you go. Great words by Roberto Candelaria, who wanted to be episode 50 for some reason. I'm not sure, because he's nowhere near 50 years old, so I'm not sure if that's a significant number in your life. But thank you so much, Roberto. Appreciate it. Everybody check out, if you really want to dig deep into sponsorship, this is the man. He's the bomb. Can mean an enormous amount of money. So check out all his stuff in the show notes. Don't forget episode 49 on repurposing. Make sure you listen to that. Check out the How to Be a Kick Butt Publicity Hound book. That's an ebook. You can be reading it in 5 minutes from now. That will help you prepare, because when you're seen on radio and TV and in print everywhere, it's very impressive, not only to clients, but to sponsors. So check that out. And we will see all you screwballs on the next episode. Catch you later.